Hello and welcome to Psych 560 Virtuality. I'm Professor Stacy Thayer and I will be your instructor for this semester. So we're spending the next couple of weeks talking about virtuality. What is it? What does it mean? What is it in reality as it compares to reality? But at the moment, it's just being this abstract concept. And so we'll look at how it's used artistically, scientifically, some of the clinical ways when we look at human behavior expressed in a virtual world and how that virtual environment or that virtual reality compares to actual reality in terms of human perception. So we'll look at different things about how humans adapt into cyberspace and what the experience is like. So going over the semester and what will be expected of you in the different assignments. So first off, this is your textbook. Very, very dense textbook. It covers a lot of things. And it is very, very abstract at times. You'll notice that it reads somewhat philosophically in terms of defining what is reality. If any of you have ever taken a philosophy course and spent time trying to define what reality is, there's several chapters in here that then say, all right, well, if this is the concept and the philosophy and the abstract of what does it mean to have reality and does reality exist, it also goes into those very abstract concepts in terms of virtuality. So it can, just a warning, and it can be a little bit heady, but what we're going to do over the next few weeks is pick out the hands-on concrete pieces that you can use as a cyber psychologist, but then you also have the book to refer to for some of the deeper, headier thoughts and more theoretical approaches to this concept of virtuality in a virtual environment versus the reality as we understand it. So that is your textbook. If you have any issues trying to get to it, please let me know. As I said before, I'm your professor. I'm Dr. Stacy Thayer. You can be reached via email. I do have office hours, 9 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time via Zoom. I know that's not the best time for everybody, so I am available by appointment, which is usually the best way. I'm always happy to take some time to talk to you and add some clarification if you'd like it. So primary methods of instruction, similar to all other courses that you've taken through this program, we'll be using Blackboard. We'll have our discussion posts. I will have recorded lectures, and we'll have learning assignments and assigned readings. And so by the end of this course, you're going to be able to define and describe the concept of virtuality and then how it applies to cyber psychology. Understand the relevance of immersion and presence. So these are two concepts that we're going to talk about a lot and how they relate to a virtual environment. Be able to assess virtual environments to determine their impact on the human experience, understand and analyze the significance of an avatar, the factors that contribute to a feeling of and sense of self in a virtual environment. And then we're also going to discuss ethical laws and virtual laws and considerations for this virtual environment. Some of the important parts that usually we'll get questions on are your assignments, of course. So much like if someone were to ask you to define reality and discuss your experience of reality, it's a pretty broad question, okay? And it's hard not to bring your own personal experience when talking about how you define reality. What does reality mean to you, to somebody else? I mean, you could really get up there in your head, as you can see with the textbook. So where I wanted to start with this is to start with you and perception and reality, whether it's the reality of the world around us or the reality of a virtual experience. If you're not able to reflect upon your own experience with it, then it becomes difficult and challenging to have either the empathy or the appreciation or understanding of what other people may be experiencing. So starting with that base level of a self-reflection paper. And so I want you to think of a time when you were engaged in a virtual environment, a virtual reality, augmented reality. These are all things that will be covered during the lecture topics. But I want you to reflect your experiences and your engagement level. What was that like? All right. So, and this can be everything from you're playing Pokemon Go and walking around and using the augmented reality piece, your phone to interact with the environment around you. And the point in this that I want you to think about is, if you were ever playing a video game and there was a virtual character that you liked or disliked. I mean, there are video games that I've played that I really like the characters, and I become a faction of it, of, oh wow, I really, I like them, I dislike them, I care about what happens to them. And even though it's clear they're in a virtual environment, they're not real people, I notice in myself that I have a level of attachment. There's certain games like role-playing games where you can make choices that impact the characters, and you see people make choices in a game that have positive outcomes for characters because they care about them, because they engage in them. And so I want you to think about that. When was there a time? And was it with characters? Was it with live people? When were you interacting, but only on a virtual level? So there was no actual face-to-face environment, all right? And so what was the relationship like? Did you have any sort of emotional attachment or feelings about them? Have you ever created an avatar? So this can be just something of a character where you've made your own little face. It could be like a little cartoon character. It can be a picture. I mean, how did you create this avatar? What about it led you to select that? The hairstyle, did you make it look like you? Did you, how much time did you spend going into it? Again, video games are a good place for this to go to as well, because sometimes they can't look like you. So but you're still choosing your representation. I'm thinking of a couple of games. There's a game company called BioWare, and they have a game Mass Effect and Dragon Age. And there's all sorts of games where you can create what your character looks like. Do you want them to be male, female, gender neutral? Do you want them to pick a romance character? Do you want, it creates this virtual environment, this virtual world. And even though that's not quite virtual reality because it's a game, it's still a starting point for being engaged and involved with it, with virtual characters, with other players, or within an environment that isn't real, okay, but is actually from a computer. So we want to be able to think, what is our experience going through this? And did you feel a sense of presence and immersion? Again, we'll be talking about this during the lecture topics, but what impact did that have in your experience? So for those of you who have been in a VR experience, and maybe you created an avatar and you may play with other people, so you could do that, so via the virtual reality experiences, but did you feel immersion? What impact did that have on your experience? And then what have you learned so far in the semester that makes you think about your virtual experiences differently? So this is due on February 13th. So we've had a few weeks into the semester by then. So think about, what is it that you've learned so far that's made you think about a virtual experience that maybe you didn't think about before? Maybe you had a virtual experience and hadn't thought about the concept of presence or immersion. And when we think about it, I mean, even with movies, so why is something, say, a 3D movie? All right, when we have a 3D movie and something comes out of this, is trying to create this virtual environment, this environment that we feel immersed in. And so that is immersion in itself, of how do we really get into it. And if you've ever been like an Omni theater, a big screen, or an IMAX theater, where it's this big giant screen and it's all around you and you feel like you're in it. They're all trying to create this sense of immersion to bring you into the environment of the movie, to capture you in there and feel this sense of presence or immersion. And then what kind of virtual experiences would you like to have in the future? And so this is, as we talk about throughout the class, about what kind of applications there could be for virtual reality. Think about, well, what would this look like for you? Maybe you have a phobia that a virtual experience could help you overcome, or virtual therapy. I can tell you, for me, a virtual experience that I would like to have. I would think it'd be really interesting to someday, if they had the technology, actually have a virtual image of you, if you will, of somebody, and I wonder, does it feel like you're sitting next to them? So if we were all to put on our VR headsets, and within that VR headset be sitting around in a room together as us, like a holograph, like Star Wars and the Jedi, when they passed. And anyway, I'm nerding myself out here, but you get what I mean, is that if we were all to have a holographic image of ourselves, would that feel just like it does in person? Would we connect to each other? Do we actually have to see each other? And actually, can we connect to each other via an avatar? Does it have to look like the actual person? Would we know the difference? So those are the kind of experiences I would be really interested in the future, what that kind of experience would be like. For some of that for my own self-reflection of, okay, what would that be like? What would that be like to be with somebody and spend time with them completely in a virtual room? Would it feel the same? So for that paper, as a self-reflection paper, 3 to 5 pages, an APA style, using 3 references. And so with references, this is to define presence, define immersion, define the avatars. So using your references to be able to define the concepts that you're reflecting upon your personal experience with. So again, the self-reflection paper, pick a time when you engage in a virtual environment, virtual reality or augmented reality, all of which we'll define during the lecture topic, and just reflect around your experience. What was that like? Okay, so the goal here is for you to really think about the experience and remember what it was like to be in the moment in this virtual or augmented reality, and what you felt like was something so that was not real, but maybe you still had a connection to, and what was that like from a technological perspective, from a human perspective? What was that experience like for you? And then the final paper, which we do the final week of the course, so March 4th, I want you to choose a peer review article related to the field of virtuality or so virtuality, virtual reality, that, and do a peer review or article critique in the 3-page paper. Okay, so just kidding, 5 to 7 pages. Okay, sorry, 5 to 7 page paper. And I want your paper to include the following: an overview of the article topic and the variables. So what were they studying? What was the dependent variables? What was happening? Was there something being manipulated? What was going into that environment? And then discussion of the methodology and the procedures. So who were the participants? What was the sample size? Was it qualitative? Was it quantitative? What measures were used? How did this study contribute to this field of virtuality? What were the implications for future research? So this is a format that you're familiar with, of having analyzed articles in other classes. But so perform this, it's again, peer review, article critique, article of your choice within the field of virtuality or virtual reality, and just think about and analyze the topic and the research, similar to you would if you were preparing for your literature review or doing any kind of article analysis. And so to be clear, it is a 5 to 7 page paper, not 3, 5 to 7, APA style, no minimum number of references, but we want you to have references. And also make a 3 to 5 minute video, actually for both papers, just sharing your experience so the class can learn from your learning experience. And then we have our weekly discussions. So I will post a new discussion. So you'll find one on Monday. Then by Wednesday, and you want to post your response to the discussion post. By Friday, reply to at least 3 of your classmates posting. And then the other important one for full credit is to follow up on that, so that it's not just you post, they reply back, you're following up with that reply. I think there's been a little bit of confusion in previous classes. So there's 3 touch points for full credit: your post, your responses, and then your responses to the people who replied to you. So you need to have all 3 of those touch points for full credit each week. Okay, and now, so the breakdown: 25% for your self-reflection paper, 35% for your final paper, and then our weekly discussions are 40% of your grade. The different topics that we'll be covering: so foundations of virtuality, what presence and immersion, because it's very important concepts from what we're talking about, the self and virtual world, avatar and your emotions, VR therapy and medical simulations, training, educational simulations, virtual law and ethics, and the future of virtual reality. In your final paper due and your self-reflection paper due, all the assignments due and readings during that time. So if you have any questions going through, and then of course the rest of the syllabus is usual university-wide policies. If you have any questions at any time, especially as we get to closer and closer to your course assignments, and any questions, please let me know. Again, my goal here for any class that you have with me, my goal is always about your learning experience. So especially with something like your self-reflection paper, that's your journey to think about. So I'm not going to be terribly pedantic about, was this a virtual reality experience? Did you have a headset? Was it an augmented reality? But I'm happy to answer any questions. The goal for this is for you to think about a environment that was outside of what we would consider reality. So there's a difference between a person that actually exists and interacting with them digitally, because that person actually exists, versus say a character in a game, or a character in a virtual environment that you have not met, that you don't know what they look like. It's just completely a virtual environment. And so this is one of the reasons why I asked you to see if you could watch Ready Player One, because that's a really great example of a movie, an entire film, where there were these characters that were people in their own right, in their own interactions, in their regular reality, but their entire world and all of their social engagements were within this virtual reality. So even though they were real people, they connected with each other with avatars. And so we'll get deeper into that. So please, I do encourage you to watch that movie, because it's such a great example of a lot of what we're talking about throughout the course. And it's a fun example, and maybe a little bit more relatable than the big textbook here that you will have to read. But so if you're not able to get access to that movie, please let me know. I'm happy to do a viewing or something for you, because it really touches upon a lot of what we'll be covering in the class in a light and fun way. So again, any questions that you have, please feel free to reach out, and I'm looking forward to a great semester with you all. Thank you.